Welcome to a special collaboration between Guardian and Thin Brewline Coffee, where we merge our worlds to bring you an exciting new podcast experience.
Today, our guest is Megan Lautz. She's a dietitian and owner of RescueRD, who helps first responders make practical nutrition changes tailored to their dynamic work environment. She's worked in the world of nutrition and wellness for over 7 years. And fun fact, Megan's clients lose on average 14.3 pounds while working with her. So Megan, let's get started by telling us what inspired you to get into the world of wellness.
That's a good question. I remember in high school, we had a kind of a drill sergeant kind of gym teacher. And I went to an all girls school. I thought we were going to play dodgeball. I didn't think this was going to be this boot camp style workout. And I actually ended up really liking it. So I thought I was going to be an athletic trainer, realized I don't like touching people. So I went with yelling at people to eat their vegetables. So here we are, several years later.
I love that. And so, Megan, you're a self-proclaimed realist dietitian. What does that mean in your own words?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, to me, that's how do I eat when I'm tired and cranky and I really don't want to eat healthy, right? When my life is blowing up, maybe I'm picking up extra overtime, I'm getting a divorce, my kids are sick. How do I eat when everything sucks is basically what I specialize in.
Working with firefighters and police officers, what are the big differences between the two groups? Because they work very different schedules, they live different lives, but they also share a lot of things.
A lot of the strategies are very similar because I kind of specialize in both. So working for a large agency in the DC metropolitan area, I work for a department of about 1,200 firefighters and 1,600 police officers. I've seen about 16 to 20 of them a week one-on-one. And when you see the same trends over and over and over again, what do I pack when I'm hangry so I don't get hangry? What's something realistic to pack in a patrol car? What's something that I need to pack in order to stay hydrated in case a fire does happen or something like that? So I see a lot of the same challenges over and over. Really, what I've noticed the big differences is one, police is blue and fire is red. And then the other side, roll call, lineup. There's a different language and there's a different way that you kind of season or flavor the information that you're providing, even though it's the same kind of ground rules, right? The bigger difference that I see, honestly, is when I switch over to dispatch. And the difference with dispatch, I feel because they weren't required to have a level of fitness for the job necessarily, there was no fitness test in the police one, depending on where you're at. I mean, how fitness testy it is. There's no CPAT. I feel it's a little bit more difficult to get them to really make a change. But the other side of the coin is their job has them chained to a desk with 15-minute breaks twice a day. It's a hard job to change. So there are some slight language considerations. There are some slight considerations from midnights to being chained to the desk. But yeah, mostly the same stuff.
And what about with academies? I don't know if you notice any differences with fire and police academies. Going through a fire academy, I remember, hey, we start the morning with PT. So if I ate anything more than a banana, I would see that food again during my workout, which you don't want to do.
Nope.
So then I would resort to things that cyclists would use, gel packets or whatever, just in those hard workouts that get me through, and then eat a breakfast after PT. But then you're also kind of working out through the entire day. So I don't know if you see any similarities or differences with police and fire academies.
Yeah, so the biggest difference between a police academy versus a fire academy is typically fire academies are once you get to suppression, right? If you're talking about that 6-month EMS for the first half, fire suppression for the second half, or flippity floppity, depending on where you're at, it's going to be a significantly higher calorie burn, a significantly higher fitness requirement, right? Relative to police. Now, with police, typically there's PT in the morning and defense tactics in the afternoon. So fueling is making sure they're not skipping meals. I recommend applesauce pouches for my people like you who the banana's just not happening. even Gatorade, full sugar Gatorade, the gels, those work really well for someone whose tummy is a little bit meh for before PT. But here's the thing, like recruits at that time, they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to skip my pre-workout because that worked for me when I was just doing whatever in my 9-to-5 life. You're not living a 9-to-5 life anymore. Technically you are, but you might be wearing gear the whole remainder of the day, and you still got 4,000 to 6,000 calories to get down. Like, I need you to eat, because not only am I going to see you bonk during PT potentially, you're going to be falling asleep at your desk or relying on energy drinks, right? That would never happen in a fire academy. I don't see Basic hiding them behind their back every time I walk past them. You know, and then also you're going to be headachy, hungover, and just struggle to be able to study and recover. So the fueling has to be very tailored during an academy situation. We can talk about more flexibility a little bit later when you get in the field, but at the academy setting, we've got to be very dialed in.
Megan, in looking at first responders' eating habits as a whole, as you know, our community, we can, there's a lot of A-type personalities and very strong-headed individuals. So, as far as what you're seeing in your line of work, what would you say are some of the hardest dietary habits that first responders have that are super hard to break?
Yeah, I think it's, you guys have been unsupervised for too long. And you don't know what you don't know, right? You're kind of going based off of internet searches or what the guy in your station worked for him to lose 50 pounds in 20 minutes. That's kind of what I see the trends being for first responders and food choices. So in terms of stubbornness, it seems like the biggest hurdle is coming to see me, right? Like the scary vegetable lady is just going to tell me to eat salad and sadness and never have a beer again. And that's not the vibe. The vibe is, okay, you're coming to me and you're telling me your energy levels are bad. What does your eating look like? You're skipping meals, you're ADHDing around the station all day, and you're relying too much on energy drinks. We add more regular meals, and then people tend to have more energy, and they actually need less energy drinks. I've actually gotten some of my first responders off of pre-workout, like the powders, caffeinated stuff, with applesauce pouches, which sounds like witchcraft, and it is. But a lot of times it's just not understanding that energy doesn't come from caffeine. Energy comes from calories in food. So hopefully that kind of answered the question. That was just kind of one of the biggest challenges I see is energy. I'm too tired. I'm too fatigued. I don't feel good. And then once you get them feeling good, we can start talking about performance and other things.
So Megan, I think it's funny that you mentioned applesauce right now. So as you know, they say the secret's in the sauce. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about your stance or your belief on incorporating applesauce of all things into one's diets and those benefits.
Sure. So here's the thing with nutrition, right? Like, how many times have you guys maybe been to a conference and they're like, it's like a wellness conference and there's one guy up there and they're like, one slide on nutrition. And they're like, you need to eat healthy. Next slide.
But what does that mean?
What does it mean? Or it's like that, like super jacked, like bodybuilder person mm-hmm. being like, just go vegetarian and never have alcohol and never have beer and work out all the time. And you're like, bro, I'm so tired. Like, I have a baby. Like, I'm up all the time. I work an extra OT. Like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not going to do that. So it's either this really extreme, perfect pie in the sky approach, or it's like barely any information. So with the applesauce pouches, why is that relevant? Well, I have to look at what's going to work when you are on the go. You don't have access to a microwave. You may not get back to the station till God knows when. You might get held over and you don't know when your lunch or your next meal is, right? So what does that mean? We can't be carrying like salads that are going to go bad in a hot patrol car around, right? We're looking at non-perishable options that are portable and are going to last in a go bag for 3 to 6 months, right? So you're not constantly changing out that go bag. Now, of course, could you have some cut pineapple or like, cut fruit that might go bad in a day or two? Sure. But you want to have that core go bag so that when you do get stuck on a critical incident for 24 hours or whatever, 10 hours, whatever that length is based on your what it is, you have something to mash together a meal so you don't get hangry, your mental performance stays high, and your energy levels don't tank later in the shift. So the reason the applesauce pouch, long-winded answer, full serving of fruit, non-perishable, last 6 months or more in a go bag. And honestly, like once I get people on the sauce, they never get off the sauce. Because what it does is like, I can actually have an officer who's like screaming down the highway, drink down an applesauce pouch real quickly. Like that's the most realistic option from a fueling standpoint. It's like when your brain is starting to go because you're starting to get tired and cranky and you're like, it's time to go get lunch. Wrong. Dispatch says wrong. You're not going to lunch. And, you know, that's the only option, right? Same thing works well for workouts. So the reason applesauce pouches work well for workouts, it's for that person who's like, my workouts have been bad. I'm tired. The weights feel heavier. I want to skip them all the time. My motivation's out the window. My lifts aren't fun anymore. And then I get them on an applesauce pouch or two, and suddenly they have the energy to get through that workout. So, you know, that actually leads to better willpower. That leads to better motivation. So it may sound stupid that a little applesauce pouch that you throw at a toddler works well for first responders. But it really just hits a lot of those big things that a lot of people just aren't thinking about when it comes to nutrition.
Love it. And I actually love applesauce too. So that's a win-win for me. I'm going to start eating some more applesauce.
Yeah. Like I have them in my gear bag. I've got them in pockets. I've got them all over the place. And the other thing I just wanted to add is if you haven't had the smoothie pouches, that's the graduation step. So then we go to like Noka's a big brand. They're like double the size of the applesauce pouch. Another really quick portable option.
So, Megan, you've been in nutrition and wellness for a number of years now. I can only imagine how many clients that you have worked with over these years. When you work with clients, I've been wondering from your perspective, what makes somebody a dream client versus a nightmare client to work with?
I haven't had that question before. That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, so I've been working with first responders for about 8 years as a dietitian. And I almost feel like I have more time than that because I've always worked a full-time job and a part-time job, whether it's consulting or extra clients on the side and stuff like that. And I think what makes a good client is someone who knows they have like a deficit. Let's say they know that they need to lose 20 pounds and they're not really maybe sure what it is. And they come to me and they say, and I find they think they know what it is. Okay. I'm eating to, I need to intermittent fast. I shouldn't be eating breakfast. And then I'm like, actually, you probably need breakfast. And then you also need a second breakfast. And then they lose weight and their energy levels improve. Right. So where they're like willing to like listen and work on the blind spot, but also understand that that might take several sessions to get through. Which for type A people, they're like, I didn't fix the problem immediately. Like there's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You're trying to change a behavior like when literal buildings are on fire. Like, so, it's, it takes a little bit of time. And that's why coaching is really helpful for this population is like when you feel like you are failing and you're not hitting any of the mark, I can show you like body composition data. I can show you some of the smaller changes that you forgot about compared to just like trying to mash together a couple TikToks and the guy on the station who's in good shape advice. And you're not getting that recurring feedback.
Within the first responder community, what's the biggest factor that will affect performance? Would you say dehydration or poor nutrition?
Depends on the person. We know at least for firefighter data that 9 out of 10 firefighters show up to planned trainings and drills mild to mildly dehydrated, which is a problem because they end up sucking down more or actually losing more weight from sweat losses per bottle per 15 to 30 minutes of work. So that can be problematic from a performance standpoint. I think it depends on the time of year. It depends on the scenario. And when I say time of year, like the temperature, right? We know the DMV, it gets disgusting mid-July. And right now it's freezing. So it really kind of depends. It depends on what type of performance we're talking to. I think we always talk about the physical performance, but what about cognition, right? Having the energy to remember things, do things, especially when you're in medic school or you're in an academy setting. And really, I think what people don't realize is like the smaller frequent meals tend to do better for most people, tend to do better for most first responders. just because then it just continues to push, especially for firefighters. We know they eat like 3 plates at dinner. Half the time they're not eating very much the day before or earlier in the day, right? So a lot of times the more frequent meals work for most of my clients, though intermittent fasting can work. It just depends on the person.
You have let's say a rookie firefighter. I'm going to use an example from literally last night, who doesn't know how to cook. For example, I was cooking for a station I'm not normally at. So when that happens, my go-to is CRB, chicken, rice, broccoli. It's like it's cheap, easy. You're not going to get a lot of people bucking back at that. It's healthy, and depending on how you cook it, I guess. But anyways, he was helping me sous chef it up, and I was like, "Hey man, can you help with the chicken?" He's like, "Oh, I've never done that before, really. Like my parents made like hot dogs and mac and cheese type meals growing up, and I don't really know how to cook." And I was like, "Oh," my advice to him was just, "Hey, sous chef as much as you can. Learn from some of the other guys. That's where everybody gets their recipes, anyways. They're all stolen in the firehouse from the other firefighters." But when he's trying to make healthy choices but doesn't know how to cook, where does he start? What's the game plan?
So typically your rookie is going to be on the younger end, though I've had 30, 35, 40-year-old rookies, typically by then they kind of have their act together. Questionable sometimes. But in any case, that younger rookie, so your early 20s, maybe just coming out of mom's basement kind of vibes. Yeah, if you are a rookie in that age group and you don't know how to cook, your family never really cooked, your time to learn is when you're in the firehouse. Which I know is kind of exhausting because you're going through drills and you're going through your rookie packet and you're like, I don't feel like, can I just not learn something for 5 minutes? But a lot of times my rookies actually find out that they actually like cooking, especially when they have someone who's very passionate about it, being the lead chef or whoever that is. So yeah, I think definitely get your hands dirty. Understand that chicken is not made to be medium rare, which is the biggest rookie mistake.
Unforgivable.
Unforgivable, directly to jail. Yeah, I think the other side too. So I have a recipe book, which I know Guardian has it in the app, but for those who maybe don't have the app, on my website, it's free, RescueRD.com. You can get that from my website, and it's $5 to $6 a head. Questionable in this economy, but I made it in 2020. $5 to $6 a head for shifts of 6, 10, and 14 firefighters, half a pound of protein per person. And the portion size is you take a family of 4 on Pinterest and it's 2 firefighters. We double the portion size. And everybody's like, well, you're the dietitian. Shouldn't we be restricting their portions? I don't know what type of call you ran that day. Did you run 2 calls that day and did nothing? Or did you do a workout and a training and then you did have a fire, or you did have an active related call or an active training or drill? I don't know. Are you going to use the food as leftovers for lunch the next day or on your middle day? It's best to just have more food in the firehouse is what I've learned. Otherwise, they set you on fire and they don't put you out. So for that rookie, or really any firefighter who's like, I'm bored with what we're doing, these are healthier options that will show you. I think the other challenge is like scaling, right? If I'm at a station of 6 firefighters versus a station of 14, we have a station of 17 firefighters. So it kind of already breaks down the math. So they're not like, how much do I make? Which kind of fixes the issue. So yes, learn from people, but then also consider that recipe book just so you kind of have an idea of scaling.
Do the firefighters that you work with have a favorite recipe from your book?
Yeah, the one I like to do, just because now I've made it a gajillion bazillion times, is the Cajun chicken pasta, which is the first recipe in the recipe book. I like doing that one because I feel like when firefighters think a dietitian is going to come out to the station, it's like, I'm just going to come with like a massive kale salad and just be like, eat it. And then I come out and I make pasta and they're like, wait a second. I actually kind of like this. So it's one of the easier recipes. It's great for meal prep too, because it actually kind of tastes better the next day. And it's higher fiber, higher protein. I sneak a bunch of veggies in there and I cut them up real small so the captain can't pick them out. Like, yeah, that's the one.
And I love that one. And then I also like making because it's so active, involved. It makes you almost feel like you can cook. Is the African chickpea curry recipe?
Yes, that one's brutal. It's brutal.
Yes.
So that one's not mine. I actually had so I have dietetic interns from University of Maryland, and one of my interns wrote it. And I remember making it for one of the stations once. I was like, I'm buying the whole damn produce section, like all of it. Just put it in your cart. It takes a long time, but it is awesome. It's really good. It's one of the more time-consuming recipes.
100%. It depends what station I work at if I'm going to make that or not. That's for
and
sure.
if you have rookies to just chop and chop and chop, like that is one that I am not proud of from a time commitment standpoint, but I kept it in there because I was like, you know what? This is actually pretty good. And it makes a crap ton of food, and there's a crap ton of vegetables.
All right, Megan. So I'm ready to get schooled on electrolytes. I have been waiting all day to ask you this question. Brandon will agree with me.
Yes.
He knows that I've been looking forward to this. You have some really good knowledge about when to consume electrolytes.
Mm-hmm.
But you also talk about the difference between consuming electrolytes when you're out on a call, you're working out, you're having an active day, versus consuming them when you're sedentary for flavoring of the water.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Electrolytes conduct electrical activity in our body, which is important because if you sweat too many electrolytes out, which most people know that when they sweat, it's not just water, you're also losing sodium, potassium, magnesium, and other electrolytes, minerals, essentially. And if you don't replace those, it can lead to a condition called hyponatremia, especially if you're only replacing with water. So this is why water challenges are really dangerous. And why am I mentioning it? Because I still see academies doing them. And we get one hyponatremic person every so often. So be very careful with that. But electrolytes provide electrical conductivity in the body. And if you are not losing electrolytes through sweat, I've been seeing this like TikTok trend of if you don't have sea salt first thing in the morning, then you're not hydrating enough. First of all, no, that like you're not looking at any of the evidence there at all. And then it's like this 9-to-5-er or somebody on late duty is like sitting at a desk, pounding 6 liquid IVs a day and actually having cardiac abnormalities due to it. So basically the moral of the story with electrolytes is we use them when you lose them, right? I just thought of that. Holy
I love that. I love that.
I'm putting it on a shirt. You use them when you lose them. Right? We don't use them when we sit on our butt in the day room watching football. We use them when we're sweating them out.
Megan, like that was earth-shattering for me because pretty much my whole adult life, ever since I learned about electrolytes, I have used them to flavor my water. Yeah. I did it. I even did it today out of habit. And so thank you for sure. I had no clue. So if we're not going to use electrolytes to flavor our water, I'm sure lemon, lime, any other go-tos you recommend?
Sure. With the electrolyte, well, so here, keep this in mind too. If you're an active person, like you're doing a good, decent workout, you go outside and walk in the heat, you stand outside a gas leak in bunker pants for like 3 hours, then maybe you probably do need some of those lower electrolyte products. So like when I say that, like a Noon or a Propel or like a Gatorade Zero, but then once stuff starts catching on fire, and you're going in high intensity, significant losses, then we're looking at liquid IV, drip drop, and fluid tactical. And those, you do want to have sugar in them. So the reason you want to have sugar is you gain access to another transporter on the cell called a sodium glucose co-transporter, which means you actually get rehydrated 2 to 3 times as fast. So a lot of people are like, well, what about Element, Fire Salt, Relight? And they're not bad products. They do work, but you lose access to speed. And when I'm making these blanket recommendations, those are going to be the products I recommend for large purchases in departments. Now, coming back to the drink flavoring conversation, again, like Element's not something we sip through the day unless you are a sweaty person. Maybe you're adjuncting at the academy, you're in the instructor cadre, we can maybe have that conversation. But like just sitting in day work, sitting in a detective position, meh. I'm perfectly fine with artificial sweeteners, which I'm sure there are people spontaneously combusting as I say that. But basically, like when you start really digging into the research, like the most people are not getting the dose of artificial sweetener that's required to increase cancer risk, increase cardiovascular risk, or drastically change the gut microbiome to a point that it causes issues. Does it change the gut microbiome like sucralose? Does it change the gut microbiome? Yes, but it's not to the extent that most people think. The other thought is aspartame. So the World Health Organization in 2023 came out with this big claim that aspartame causes cancer or is a type 2 carcinogen. And when you read into that, a type 2B carcinogen is basically like we don't have substantial evidence in animals or in humans that it causes cancer. We just have maybe some preliminary stuff. And the other side of it is the dose makes the poison. So the amount of aspartame to even possibly maybe cause cancer or increase cancer risk, not cause cancer, increase cancer risk, is 15 Diet Cokes a day.
Mm.
How many people do you know who are drinking 15 Diet Cokes a day? We know somebody, right? And, you know, you can consider like the monsters and all the other like random artificial sweeteners that are adding up throughout the day. But most people just aren't getting that dose consistently, regularly enough. But so basically what I'm trying to say is if you like Crystal Light, if you like Mio, if you like those flavored water things that are not caffeinated, because I keep seeing people put 2 full bottles of Mio into their water bottle and then wondering why they can see sounds, then we could certainly consider using those to flavor your water if you're bored. I like Propel because it's like a little lemon limey, gives you a little bit of electrolytes. It's not, if you're a worker outer, it works fine.
Megan, I want to know what they're drinking to see sound because I think I'd try it. I think I'd try a glass.
Yeah. Do you know how many? It's usually in academy settings where I see issues with the caffeine. One time we had a recruit put 2 full bottles of Mio Energy into their 32-ounce water bottle. And that was the equivalent of 2,200 milligrams of caffeine. For context, I want you to keep it under 400. So they wouldn't let us see what would happen if he drank it because liability. But yeah, don't do that.
Okay. Noted.
With talking about caffeine, I don't know if you remember, I think it was a few months ago, Megan, I sent you a picture of my partner for the day of the upside down coffee cup. I'll have to like add it in this video.
You need to, yes.
But anyways, Jordan, my favorite picture of all time. My buddy went to go pour a cup of coffee, but we had such a rough night that he had the cup upside down. So it's just this picture of coffee everywhere and on the bottom of his cup that's on the top of his cup. Anyways, with coffee being what keeps us going when we have those rough nights, and I know in law enforcement it could be the same thing. How much is too much? I know I've heard some things about time of day like drinking coffee, drinking too late, too close to waking up. I don't know what your thoughts are on all that.
Yeah. So, you know, I have a very solid caffeine tangent. Yeah, with caffeine, we're going for under 400 milligrams per day, which for someone who doesn't know that in math, it's 32 to 40 ounces of coffee total in a 24-hour period, which I think is reasonable. The civilian who roughly sleeps a night when my daughter doesn't try to terrorize me. But for the person running 5 calls after midnight, they're like, bro, that's rookie numbers. So with that, yeah, it like 32 to 40 ounces of coffee per day. Another big question I get with that is, well, coffee is dehydrating, so I shouldn't be drinking coffee. And actually, research suggests that for those who drink coffee every day, so a habitual drinker of coffee, aka the fire, police, and dispatch service, right? That caffeine is a diuretic. They will pee more in the first hour, but they just replace what they lost with the liquid from the caffeine. So the total body hydration over the course of the day doesn't seem to change. So now if you drink like 300, 400 milligrams of caffeine in a sitting, like a crap ton of coffee, an energy drink, something like that, then we start to see the losses outweigh the replacement, right? So that is an important consideration for the fire service. From a caffeine standpoint, like really what it is like the energy drinks and the pre-workouts. Like that's where you all just
it's crazy. The amount of energy drink just exploded over the last like 2 years, at least in my department. It's it's almost unreal. I mean, I've totally had some before, but it's wild. It's wild.
Listen, I don't recommend energy drinks, right? And the primary reason is the additives. Well, one, a lot of them are actually super high in caffeine, like your Bangs, your Celsius Heat, your Reigns are 300 milligrams, which are already getting very close to that total daily amount, right? But the additives, there is some preliminary research that's suggesting that an energy drink per day with taurine, gluconolactone, guranolactone could potentially be neurotoxic. So increasing your risk for things like Parkinson's disease, migraines, seizures, that kind of stuff. Not fun. So there is a reason that I'm saying don't do energy drinks. I'm not saying don't do energy drinks because I'm a monster, right? But I also understand that sometimes like you need one to get through the day, right? Like maybe you have an hour, 2-hour drive home and you're on daddy, mommy daycare the rest of the day. Then yeah, like that, you're going to have to maybe do that. But it's when we start to see, and I usually see this in rookies, right? They did one energy drink to get through the academy. They get onto the field. Now they add another one midday. And then, the guys are lifting right before dinner. So they're going to do pre-workout. And then they end up getting their butt handed to them on the ambulance. So they do another energy drink to get through the night. And next thing you know, they're at 1,200, 1,600. I've seen as much as 2,600 milligrams of caffeine in a day. And their energy levels are garbage. They feel like crap. So coming back to the timing is really important because the closer you drink it to bedtime, the more likely your sleep cycles are impacted. So I don't care if you're that captain who's like, well, I can have a cup of coffee and go right to sleep. It doesn't prevent you from falling asleep. It messes with your sleep cycles. So you have that cup of coffee and, it hits, right before rapid eye movement, deep sleep. You spend less time in those phases. You wake up the next day feeling like garbage. What do you reach for more of? Caffeine. So it just becomes this cycle. So number one, when you're trying to, if you need to modulate your caffeine, we can consider cutting it off at 4 p.m. if bedtime is 9 p.m., given about a 5-hour buffer. Some people need more time just from a genetic consideration. And then the other consideration is if I get someone from 3 Bangs a day to 3 Monsters in a day, I've cut their caffeine in half. So I've gotten to the sad point in my career where I am now recommending Monsters and Red Bulls because they're half the caffeine of Bang, Celsius Heat, and Reign. So they keep the behavior of drinking that energy drink 3 times throughout the day, but they've cut their caffeine in half. So they don't get that crazy crash, the flu-like symptoms, the migraines. And then eventually we work at cutting back on the energy drinks in total.
Megan, I heard a recent story about you providing a lecture about positive nutrition changes. And I think you were at a fire department or firehouse, can't remember where. And there was a citizen that dropped by and donated a bunch of boxes of pizzas to everybody while you're trying to talk about nutrition. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I was doing a workshop in Grapevine, Texas. So I do these like fueling fire nutrition workshops. They're like 4 or 6 hour days. And like in the fire chief there is like amazing, like the best, nicest guy. He gave me this little onesie for, at the time, my 4-month-old. And so one of the guys who owns the pizza shop, just like sometimes will randomly drop off pizza to them. And the day that he randomly dropped off pizza was the day I was doing a 6-hour nutrition workshop. So like he delivers it. It's right after lunch. I did the buffalo chicken wraps and they're all just looking at it like, I'm like, just get up and get the pizza. Take a break. God.
Did you have a slice?
I did not. I'm like, so here's the weird thing about me is like, if you offer me cake in the middle of the day, or like when I'm working or like pizza or something, like I don't want it. I don't know what, I'm weird. So, but like if you offer me pizza when I've gotten home from work and I'm in my jammies, all bets are off, man. It's just, it's like once the feelings hit and I'm tired, you know what I mean? For some reason, I just don't want it at work. And if I don't want it, I don't eat it, which is apparently not everybody has that experience. So
no.
Yeah. My husband thinks it's really weird. Like if you could put anything in his vicinity and he'll pick at it. And I don't want it. I'm not going to pick it at.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to peel the like this is going to sound awful. Like the breading off of my chicken nuggets.
What?
I was an odd child. That's probably why I work well with the fire service. Yeah, my mom was like, "What are you?" Like, the texture was weird.
Would you still do that if you had like?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm really weird about certain textures. I'm just like, unless it's like a really crispy chicken nugget, like if it's remotely soggy, nope, kind of not. Nope. Mm-mm. I don't.
Megan, that's wild. I've
Yeah.
never heard of anybody doing that.
I'm an enigma. Yeah, there's probably other things. I'm also like a weirdo where like I have to have the exact right amount of whatever I want on my plate. So if my husband comes and takes a bite of something, I'm like, precisely. Not from a calorie standpoint. It's just like I wanted this amount with this amount. It's a problem. It's a problem.
This is going to shock you. There's a lot of information out there on social media on nutrition. A lot. Good, bad. A lot of bad, some good.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people navigate?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is when you read a diet and you read the benefits, number one, you kind of have to think of like, what's the word for it? Like, what is that person getting out of you following that diet? So for example, like the carnivore diet's huge right now. And a lot of those people are getting funded significantly by you following that diet, right? You're doing their supplements, you're doing their vitamin protocols, you're doing their classes, their courses. And I do classes and courses, right? I get that. But what is the benefit there, right? And also like a lot of those claims are completely unregulated. Like the carnivore cured my type 2 diabetes. Like we don't have randomized controlled trials right now for carnivore for the most part. Like there's a large survey that was done. But we just don't really have a lot of solid evidence compared to something like the Mediterranean diet, which we have substantial evidence, not only in the general population, but also in firefighters, that it's a very effective diet that they want to follow and they can do it long term. So another red flag is if you look at the diet and you're like, that looks like it's going to suck, then don't do it.
So why do we do it?
No, listen, and I get it. So like when I was a baby dietitian, because obviously like as a baby dietitian, like as a young dietitian, I guess, I was like really excited about nutrition. Like I was like pumped up, like this is exciting. There's nutrients, like it could do all this stuff for me. Right. And I like tried to go vegan for like 20 minutes and then I got too hungry and it didn't work. It just didn't work out. Yeah. So like if you're not going to like it, you're not going to do it long term. You know, the part of diet, like part of nutrition is not like a lot of people think it's just like the inputs, right? And then like the performance benefit, the lifestyle prevention, all that benefit, but it's also the social aspect. And we know in the fire service, even the police service, like I know I've seen police, you guys roll up, we're all meeting at Panera and lining our cars up today. There's a social aspect of food. And I think it's just unfair to eliminate that social aspect of food or the enjoyment of food. One thing some people know about me is I eat ice cream pretty much every night. Like that is my food. I'm going to eat ice cream every night. I don't care if it takes 10 years off of my life. I don't want those 10 years if they don't have ice cream in them. Okay. But the other side of that comes down to like, I have a little baby cup and I put a little baby amount in it and I have just enough. I'm not going and taking the gallon and just like spooning it until my feelings are gone because there's not enough ice cream in the world for that. So yeah, it's kind of just like really thinking, is that something I really want to do? Are the claims even substantiated, which a lot of times they aren't. And then sometimes actually you're better off spending your money, on convenience food. And when I say convenience food, meal prep companies. So locally we have like Mighty Meals I Like, Factor, Territory, like those clean eats, meal prep companies that'll deliver the food to your house, or paying for a professional. So, of course that's me claiming my services, but like having a professional, I can guide you to what actually works for you. So if you would tell me you want to do carnivore, I've worked with people who do carnivore, but as soon as they tell me their energy levels are dropping, I'm like, bro, you need to add carbs back in. And they can decide if they want to do that or not. But typically having that person who's just kind of looking at your stuff from a macro level instead of being in the weeds with you, like panicking about every single thing that you eat that day, if that makes sense.
No, it does. So all this information out there on social media, there's also a couple of like myths that I gathered from coworkers over the last few days. I told them like, hey, doing this podcast. What are some like common things, silly things that we say in the firehouse? And I'm interested on like your initial thoughts. So I'm going to say the statement and I'm interested in your immediate reaction. I have 4 of them. So the first one is 2 halves of a donut is less than 1 whole donut.
That is the most firefighter math shit I've ever seen. I actually have a post like that. I think it's like firefighter math. I only had 1/4 of a donut today, but really, I already know you had 7 quarters of a donut that day. You've had 3 donuts. Like, listen, I'm on to you.
Perfect. All right, next one. You aren't full until you hate yourself. I've heard that one a lot.
Oh, I've heard that one a lot. I've been there, after bodybuilding, quite frankly. Yeah, it depends on what you're eating. Like for me, that food is Fruity Pebbles. Like if you leave me unsupervised with like a bowl of like a box of Fruity Pebbles, like the amount of damage I can do is like enough until I hate myself. Like,
yeah. For me, it's chicken Alfredo. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, that one's one that you're not going to feel good after that.
No, you can't. I can't be on duty or at least on a fire apparatus. Yeah.
You
no
just
way.
like, ugh.
Heavy. Okay. Holiday calories don't count.
How's that working for you?
I think good for me. I mean,
okay.
Everybody's different, right?
Listen, the average person gains 5 pounds from Thanksgiving to New Year's. And I would say firefighters tend to overachieve in that category. So
maybe they do count. All right. Back to the donuts. Last one. Cold donuts have less calories.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
That's awesome. I will be happy to share those answers with the guys that gave me those.
Yes, send them to me. I will look at them disappointingly.
All right, Megan. So we're going to wrap up today's conversation with our fishbowl segment. So this fishbowl has a bunch of random questions. So I have no idea which question we're going to draw for you. But it's just a fun game, so give us your best answer. Okay, so if you had to choose one animal to help you win a fight, which animal would you choose?
Oh, crap. I feel like a bear. Like, I think that would be, they're pretty big. They can swim, and they're on land also, right? Can bears swim?
Your bear can swim.
My bear can swim.
Yeah.
Like they're a land animal,
Is this going to be a grizzly
water
bear?
animal. I don't
A
know.
black bear?
Just the bear, a bear. I'm not very good at animals. Okay. I know, like I'm just the vegetable lady here. Yeah, I think that would make sense. I feel like I would win that fight mostly. What would beat a bear? Exactly.
Yeah. Think you win. I mean, you're good.
I win.
Win that fight.
I won the fight.
I mean, that's a deep question.
Yes. Stunned.
Well,
everybody's just stunned.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for being with us today. We know how busy you are, and we really appreciate your time. So we're going to leave all your contact information in the description below. But before we say goodbye, tell us, what was your last cheat meal?
Oh, crap. What was my last cheat meal? I am also the type of person who eats something and then immediately forgets that I ate it. Does the ice cream every night count?
No.
Crap. Oh, we went to a pizza place this weekend. That was good. It was a Barstool place. I already forgot where it was. Anyway, yeah, I guess pizza on Saturday.
All right. I love it. That's a good cheat meal. Yeah. I love pizza too. Okay. Well, thank you, Megan. Thank you for your time. And I'm sure that we're going to be talking soon. And good luck with all of your future endeavors. You're doing amazing work for us. So thank you.